When I say AI, what do you picture? For most of us, it's something kind of abstract, right? A brain in a jar, maybe a bunch of code humming away in a data center, or just a chatbot on your screen. But a whole new frontier is taking shape, one that gives AI an actual physical body to see, touch, and interact with our world. This is the story of embodied AI.
Okay, so let's get right into what makes this so different. The AI we're all used to, let's call it disembodied AI, is all about thought first. It chews through mountains of data, learns from all the text on the internet, and then after all that thinking, it gives you an answer. But embodied AI, it flips the script entirely. It's all about action first. It learns by doing. It learns by moving around, bumping into things, and getting direct feedback from the world. Kind of like how a toddler learns to walk. It has to act to understand, instead of understanding before it can act.
So what's the official definition we're working with? Well, an embodied agent is basically any intelligent system that interacts with its environment through a body. And here's the really cool part, that body can be a real-deal physical robot, or it can be a virtual avatar inside a super realistic simulation. The main thing is that it's in an environment that it can directly poke, prod, and influence. But you might be wondering, why is this so important? Why does AI need to break out of its digital cage in the first place? This isn't just some cool sci-fi idea. It turns out it's a critical step for solving some very real, very physical problems.
Think about it. Even these incredibly powerful models like ChatGPT have some serious limits. Their intelligence is pretty much stuck inside the data they were trained on. That means they can't directly affect or, truly understand the physical world. They can write you a perfect recipe for a cake, but they can't for the life of them actually crack an egg.
And when you dig into the research, you find there are 4 huge hurdles for these disembodied AIs. First, they're cut off from crucial senses like touch and smell. Second, their learning phase and their doing phase are totally separate. They don't learn on the job. Third, our main way of talking to them is through language. And finally, and this is the big one, they can't physically act on any of their brilliant decisions. These are the exact problems that giving AI a body is meant to solve.
So where is all this making the biggest waves? Well, one of the first and most powerful answers is healthcare. In this field, embodied AI isn't just another tool. It's becoming a game-changing new member of the medical team, helping out everywhere from the operating room all the way to your own living room.
And I want to be clear, this is not a niche thing. A staggering 35%, that's more than a third, of all research into embodied AI is being aimed directly at healthcare. That incredible focus just goes to show you how completely transformative everyone expects this technology to be for our health.
So how does this actually work in a super high-stakes place like an operating room? Well, we can break it down into 3 main jobs. First, you have the planner, which is like the master strategist mapping out the entire surgery. Then you have the operator, which does the physical work with incredible precision. And finally, you have the navigator, the expert guide that gets the tools exactly where they need to go.
Let's get into some mind-blowing specifics here. We've got AI planners, like one called Surgical GPT, that can literally map out a whole operation. We have robotic operators that can perform these unbelievably delicate tasks, like intestinal anastomosis, which is reconnecting parts of the intestine, with a precision no human hand could match. And we have navigators that can guide instruments through the body, avoiding critical tissue, all while feeding real-time advice and data back to the human surgeon. It's amazing.
But the story doesn't end when the patient leaves the hospital. In fact, one of the most profound places we're seeing embodied AI is in our daily lives, providing care and companionship right where we live.
And this, of course, leads to a really fundamental, really human question. It's one thing for a robot to assemble a car or perform a task, but can it actually provide real, meaningful companionship? Can a machine connect with us on an emotional level? Well, the early research is starting to come back with some pretty surprising answers.
The jobs these companion robots are taking on are just incredibly diverse. They're being designed to give emotional support to people dealing with things like loneliness or anxiety. They're helping with cognitive development in children. And they're monitoring the elderly, which is huge because it allows them to live safely and independently in their own homes by helping with everything from medication reminders to just being a stable partner to lean on.
And this right here is a truly remarkable finding. Early studies are showing that some children with autism spectrum disorders actually respond more positively to a robot companion than to a human therapist. Something about the robot's predictable, non-judgmental nature seems to create this safe space that encourages more social behavior, and in some cases, even spontaneous speech. Wow. So we've seen what this tech can do, from surgery to companionship. Now we need to zoom out a bit.
Because the rise of embodied AI isn't just a technical revolution, it's forcing us to ask some really deep philosophical questions and face some big practical challenges about what our future is going to look like.
This all presents us with a fascinating fork in the road. One path, the one with our current disembodied AI, seems to lead to a future of coexistence, where we sort of co-thinkers with our AI partners. But this other path, embodied AI, is different. It learns from the same physical world that we do. And that could create a kind of parallel intelligence that doesn't rely on our books or our data, raising this really unsettling question of replacement, a new form of intelligence evolving right alongside us.
Okay, before we get to that wild future, there are some massive, real-world hurdles to jump. First, security. It has to be absolutely airtight. A hacked surgical robot isn't just a data breach, it has terrifying physical consequences. Then there's interoperability. Getting all these different robots from different companies to actually talk to each other is a huge challenge. And finally, there's the human factor. We have to train doctors and nurses not just how to use these tools, but how to actually trust them.
You know, I think this quote just nails it. It's such a simple but powerful idea. Unlike an AI that has to think before it can act, these embodied agents are so much more like us, so much more like all biological life, really. They act in order to understand. Their intelligence is literally built through doing things in the world.
And so that leaves us with this final, kind of haunting question. As we start creating these new minds that learn and grow up in our physical world, minds that act first and think later, our biggest challenge isn't just building them. It's figuring out how to instill them with the kind of abstract reasoning, the thought, that defines so much of who we are. Can we teach that before they evolve down a path so different from ours that they forget about us entirely? That is the question at the very heart of our embodied future.